Joining us on the line right now is Larry Kudlow from CNBC. Larry, of course, is also the host of the Kudlow Report and the Larry Kudlow Show on WMAL, which can be heard Saturdays at 7 p.m. So, Larry, how are you today?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Okay, listen, one of the things that's being discussed in big time right now is the idea of an internet tax. It's being discussed in the United States Senate. Now, there are those who say, look, this is a bill that is about fairness because on one hand, you got the people who have brick and mortar stores, and you go in there and you look at the goods and you put your hands on them, you touch them, you feel them, then you go back home and you order them on the internet to save a few bucks. Is that fair? Do we need an internet tax?
Well, look, this thing is an interstate internet tax. That's the biggest flaw that I can see in this. I don't have any problem with bricks and mortar being taxed in-state, the same as internet. But if you're going to ask small internet companies to be a tax collector for 9,600 tax jurisdictions around the country, my argument is that's not their purpose. That's the state's purpose, not the company's purpose. And they shouldn't be saddled with those kinds of expenses. And so I see this thing as a big tax grab is what I really see it as, and I think it's a terrible idea.
What do you make of Amazon supporting this, though? You would think they would get hit with it.
Yeah, look, they can absorb the cost. You see, that's the thing. The biggest companies here want to knock out the smaller companies. They want to knock out the competition. That's what this is all about. Walmart doesn't have any trouble with this either. I mean, you're just going to see this. Those big companies with large internet operations, they don't care. It's going to show up as a rounding error. You're not going to succeed very well, but nonetheless, not expensive. My point is it's a small business tax killer. That's my main point.
Larry, when we spoke with you last week, the Boston Marathon bombing had just happened, and there were so many questions that we had about it. Now it seems like we have a lot of the answers, and I wonder. I know that you're a big proponent of the immigration reform that's being working through the Senate right now. Do you think, in light of everything we're learning now about the terrorists that killed 3 people and injured over 100 in Boston, that we should take that into account when looking at the immigration system?
Well, look, it's going to be taken into account. I understand that. This is a shocking, terrible thing that's happened here, but it shouldn't stop it. I mean, part of the issue with immigration reform, which I do favor, you're quite right, is the whole issue of coming into this country. What kind of procedures do we have? What kind of border security do we have? And all the rest that goes with that. So there's a lot of questions, as you guys know, about the FBI's handling of these 2 brothers coming in and out of the country, for that matter, with the government of Russia getting involved and warning the United States, and the FBI was on the case, then they're off the case, then they're back on the case. These are things that should be cleared up, for everybody, it seems to me, and will be part and parcel of any bill. That is the border security and so forth, and visas and citizenship and what have you. So I would hope that this terrible jihad killing does not stop immigration reform, which I think is a much broader, ongoing question. And, I think what Rubio and some of these guys are trying to say, and I think they're right, is that, at least in economic terms, if you look at the immigration reform and you look at the benefits as well as the costs, this is a pro-growth measure if we do it right and if we get the border security right. So I remain very much in favor of it.
All right, so let me ask you, in addition to that, there's this other thing that's going on as Democrats and Republicans exchange charges over the FAA sequester. And Harry Reid is on record as saying yesterday it would be a mistake to solve the FAA problem. In other words, delays that are being caused by the sequester of air traffic controllers around the country. I thought that the purpose of government was to step in and fix things and use good judgment and to solve problems when they crop up.
Yeah,
Why do you think that he doesn't want that?
You're exactly right. I mean, this is so totally political, where it just seems to me that the administration and the executive agencies are doing everything they can to make this sequester spending cut as difficult as it possibly can be without any planning whatsoever. I mean, if you take the FAA and you take the air controllers, they knew that this was coming. Now, let me ask you this. Can't you, I mean, I was involved years ago when Reagan had government shutdowns, which are a little bit like this. You have 2 kinds of personnel. You have essential personnel and you have non-essential personnel. Obviously, air controllers and related staff are essential personnel. So not everybody needs to be furloughed at the same time, and in fact, not everybody needs to be furloughed. And if they had had better planning like that, I think they could have avoided this. They're already closing down, and they should, by the way, close down a lot of these small-town towers that for years people have said, close them down, you don't need them. I don't know whether they've done as much as they can there. But I just look at this as politics. This, to me, is the Democrats basically doing whatever they can to stop the spending cuts, okay? And the other side of the coin is to go back to the Democratic budget, which is to raise taxes, end the sequester spending cuts, and instead raise over $1 trillion in taxes. And the FAA, I think, is just another example of trying to inflict pain that is unnecessary. And I don't know, this thing might backfire. If these, if the length of delays and so forth, people might get very angry at this.
Well, we have many people who listen to this program who are actually being furloughed right now.
Right.
And I keep coming back to, they're angry about the furlough. And I say, you should be angry that you're being used as a political pawn because this is not required.
Well, I think that's right. I think you're exactly right. I mean, first of all, the administration, the White House, turned down extra authority to move money between accounts, which strikes me as odd. Some people think that they already have the power to move around, at least in so-called sub-accounts. I have no idea what those details look like, but I'm awfully suspicious. I think the people getting furloughed probably are getting unnecessarily furloughed in many cases. Maybe not in all cases, okay? I don't know this. But look, does anybody doubt that the federal government is top-heavy?
Right.
Does anybody doubt that the federal government has too much personnel and has been hiring all this period? The FAA, for example, has more staff today than it had last year and had more last year than it had the year before. Businesses, large and small, have been tightening their belt and cutting back on personnel for quite some time. It's an efficiency move. Nobody likes it. Nobody exults in it. But the reality is the economics dictate this sort of thing. So I just look at this as totally political, and I'm not surprised that Reed and others are saying what they're saying.
All right, Larry Kudlow, thanks for joining us. We got to roll, though, but it's always great to have you every Monday.
Thanks,
he
Larry.
is the host of the Kudlow Report on CNBC and, of course, the Larry Kudlow Show right here on WMAL Saturdays at 7 p.m.